12:20 a.m. KHTS right here. And speaking of talking, we were involved in a conversation, and you, Patty O'Connell, decided to interrupt. Excuse me, guys. Excuse me. It's like we're trying to talk. We're trying to have a conversation.
Time waits for no man, including the timeline of our show.
Well,
Yeah, apparently it was time to begin the show, Bobby. So
well, listen. Priorities. Okay.
why don't you go ahead and start the show? Do your thing.
Oh, hi.
Pretend like
What?
now. Give him the cue again, Patty.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, just
Okay.
oh my.
Hi, welcome everyone. Happy afternoon. It's 98.1 and 12:20 a.m.
Right, is that a Jason impersonation?
at KHTS. You're listening to the soft hits of Jason Downs and Bobby Queso. I forgot his last name. I forgot his last name there for a moment. But it is 1:09 in the afternoon, and it's a balmy 90 degrees.
It felt cooler
Balming.
than that today.
It actually did. You know
It
why?
did.
Because the cloud cover, I think it's mixed with cloud and smoke, though, isn't it?
I hope not, but yeah, it did feel cooler today, and I know it may be part psychological because we're hoping so badly that it cools down a little bit. But anyhow, we're so glad that you joined us today here on Common Ground.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad. I can speak for myself, Bobby. I don't know.
Fine. Fine. Thank you, kind citizens, for tuning in to the radio station. Blah, 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 blah.
Yes. So we
I
like.
can tell your listeners I did not supply the laughing gas.
That's Dr. Cohen.
You have laughing gas? Wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
This just opened up a whole new.
That's why we call this the show the place where we can all agree on the important stuff, right?
Laughing gas.
There you go. Who can argue with laughing gas?
That's what they should do. The entire UN. Put everybody on laughing gas, and let's see how they get along.
The UN. Why? Let's start with Congress, for goodness sake. Come on.
Wherever. Wherever different bodies meet that argue all the time.
All right. So one of the things that we're going to talk about today is, speaking of important stuff, is the importance of continuing to look out for ourselves and each other during the ongoing pandemic, which is exactly what our guest today has been doing on the front lines throughout this entire ordeal. He's been on the show a few times before, and he's back to give us an update on where things stand, the variants, the boosters. So please stick around for our community's infectious disease expert, Dr. Michael Cohen.
You know what I'm gonna ask him? If this is a hoax. I'm gonna see what he says.
Okay, yeah, no.
Is this a hoax? I'm gonna say.
Oof,
And then, he's listening? Oh, hi.
I am here.
Well,
Today is...
This is a hoax. I am in a real-life matrix, and I need to be woken up.
yeah, please wake us all up right now.
Please, you have anything for that one, Doctor? Today is October 4th, or 10-4 good buddy, as me and Bobby like to say. 10-4.
Is that what we say? 10-4?
I don't know. I'm just making this up as I go
No,
along.
that's okay, Rubber Duck. I think
10-4
10-4 is
I like the sound of it.
just fine.
10-4, good buddy.
10-4,
10-4, good buddy.
Don't forget you got a bear on your tail there and
It's 10-4.
a smoky ride in town, and put the pedal to the metal and slow it on down.
Kind of like May 4th. May the 4th be with you.
That one I get.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, 10-4. I mean,
I have never said 10-4 to you.
But you're a former police officer. I figure it's something
and
that
I
you...
said it when I was working, but you're like Bobby and I always say to each other, 10-4, good buddy. Like that's how we talk to each other.
Okay, for this,
Roger that.
For this show, let's commit to saying 10-4 to each other. 10-4, good buddy, at least 3 times, okay?
Oh my
That's
God.
the challenge. Anyhow, we're glad. Here's to a great show, a great day, a great week for all of us. Our show is sponsored by Denny & Company, LLP, certified public accountants. They make your life less taxing at dennyllp.com, and the law offices of Lou Espin. When experience counts, count on experience at espinlaw.com. Now, Dr. Michael Cohen, as I said, has been on the show before. He is he's an infectious disease expert, and he works here in the vicinity. I don't know if we're still not allowed to say where you work. It doesn't matter. You work close by. So how are things?
You can absolutely say where I work if you want to.
Oh, okay, good. So Palmdale and Santa Clarita, right?
So
You're here in...
Santa Clarita, and we have offices in Valencia and Palmdale,
Okay.
and work out of Henry Mayo Memorial Hospital and Palmdale Regional Medical Center.
Yes, indeed. So how are things looking from the front lines these days?
Well,
It's been a while since you've been on. So what's your
been a while. I was hoping that I wouldn't have to be on again. This would just all quiet down, or we'd be talking about influenza or something different. But we just finished kind of a brutal 2 months. Delta variant has basically taken over the world. So, here in the U.S., particularly California, Los Angeles County, about 99% of our cases now are Delta variants. So
Wow.
the original COVID from last year is pretty much gone. We don't see any cases based upon sequencing of that anymore. And probably because Delta spreads so much better. It's a more fit virus.
That's incredible.
It's
So you wouldn't account would you account that sort of the original COVID-19 doing away with all of that as a result of the vaccines, or is that just because, like you said, Delta just became so much more powerful?
Well, certainly the vaccines have helped. The vaccines are also effective against Delta.
Thank goodness.
There may have been some innate immunity in people who initially got the initial quote-unquote alpha coronavirus, the original COVID-19. But one, we know that immunity wanes, and two, there probably is not as much crossover with immunity as we would like with Delta. So one of the saddest things I've seen over the past couple of months is a number of people who had COVID last year and thought they were immune and did not get vaccinated and got very sick with Delta. Its mutations make it much more infectious. So probably a lot of people who weren't getting as much other people exposure or outdoor exposure to other human beings. You only need like one or two of these Delta variants as opposed to probably more with the original. So your chances, if you get a casual exposure, of actually coming down with illness are much higher with Delta.
Okay, interesting. I mean, let's stay on this immunity idea for a minute, because I mean, you said something a moment ago. There is really no such thing as natural immunity so far to the alpha or the delta.
Well, there is. We know it wanes. We know that.
Well, if it wanes,
some
then
physician friends of mine have had COVID 2, maybe 3 times even. And so we just don't know. It's probably a little different in everyone, particularly if you're older or have other illnesses. You probably don't have good immunity for too long to COVID, and probably just a couple of months.
Okay.
There may be some younger, healthier people who may have good antibodies for quite a while, maybe even up to a year. But most data shows that your immunity after a vaccine is actually stronger than your immunity after COVID infection.
Okay, that's funny, because I was actually going to ask about a statistic I saw that says studies in Israel showed that if you've had COVID, you're 7 times less likely than those vaxxed to get it. Is that true? I mean, obviously not, based on your experience of what you just said.
I have no data supporting that.
Okay.
And in fact, we have had a number of people who've had COVID come in very sick, particularly with Delta. Now, that data may be based on the original virus,
okay,
but I don't think that really holds water anymore now with this new variant.
Okay. Okay, so basically what you're saying is, even if you've had it, that immunity is short-lived, and it's still better to get the vaccine.
Correct.
Okay.
And it is still recommended even after COVID infection. And if you do look at people's responses to vaccinations, there is a little bit more of side effects when you've had COVID prior. But and we don't see increased in severe life-threatening side effects but the usual stuff, aches, fevers, arm tenderness. But what we do see in those folks, if you've had COVID and you do get vaccinated, they seem to have the best immunity. So by boosting yourself with that vaccine, you're really protecting yourself from getting it again.
Gotcha. So as far as the variants, let's talk about that for a second. So, as you mentioned, Delta has basically taken over the world. It's more efficient than the Alpha. It's spread faster. Do you and/or your colleagues anticipate these variants to sort of continue to evolve, and once we sort of beat the Delta, it's on to the next kind of thing? Or?
Yeah, we hope not. There have been a number of other variants. These basically get classified by these virologists now into a variant of interest, a variant of concern, or a variant under investigation. And so your variants of concern are like your Delta, where it's beyond concern now. It's the real deal. It's basically causing all the disease in the world right now. Variants of interest are there is a Mu variant and a Lambda variant from South America. And what they've seen with those, the reason they're of interest is because they, like Delta, have increased ability to replicate faster and become more infectious. Now, they have not really gained the foothold that Delta has, so they're just of interest. They're not of concern yet. And then there's probably about 20 variants that are, at least 8 I'm aware of, but they say there may be up to 20 that are under investigation. And what that means is we do sequencing of patients. A lot of Western countries do this. And we find new mutations and like, oh, here's another variant, but we don't know what it does, and we don't find it really anywhere else yet. So it's under investigation, but it hasn't really spread or shown the capacity to become its own kind of pandemic like Delta variant has.
Okay.
So far, after Delta, there haven't been any really what I would call scary variants. But it's only a matter of time if we keep making virus in our bodies and we don't eradicate this pandemic completely, that we'll have one that's not only more easily replicates and infects people, but also can overcome the vaccine. And then we're back at our starting point that we were in 2020.
Oof. Don't even say it.
Yeah.
I mean, so speaking...
And that is a possibility that's been raised by a number of scientists and virologists. And
what's the likelihood?
Right now, there is... That I don't know, but this is a virus that mutates and changes. And right now, thank goodness, there's nothing like that on the horizon. But Delta's really been enough, and it's still causing lots of problems.
And I guess there's something also to be said for preparedness. I mean, we're a little more prepared, wouldn't you say, at this point? Hopefully, I mean,
we are.
Even though you guys tried to warn us, for years now that something like this was coming, but
the hospitals seem to have managed the subsequent surges better. One of the issues I see is, and I'm not in these areas, but a lot of other areas that were not hit as hard initially are now getting hit hard and not really ready for it. But California, we're doing really well. We actually can be kind of proud of ourselves in that I think we still have the lowest per population infection rate right now.
We do. I checked that as well. We are currently...
It was us in Hawaii. We were kind of neck and neck. Which is really incredible with a state the size of California, that we've done that well at this point. When other states are still suffering, I think that has a lot to do with our vaccination rate and also the availability of PPE and hospital care.
So speaking of the vaccination rate, what's your position on a booster? Do we need a booster? Do you know when they anticipate having the Moderna booster? Is it not necessary? What's your... These are
Well,
some.
Moderna booster is only recommended if you're immunosuppressed,
Okay.
and that's generally recommended by most physicians I know. In that we now understand that some people who are immunosuppressed probably didn't respond to even 2 shots of the vaccine as well as they should have. And they seem to really have a nice response after a 3rd one. It does give them a boost. So Pfizer and Moderna are both recommended for immunosuppressed people. If you saw in the news last week, Pfizer was approved to have a booster for people over 65 or a high-risk illness or a healthcare worker.
Okay.
Um,
Have you have you gotten a booster yourself?
I have got my booster.
Okay. Bobby, by
I
the way,
briefly-
notoriously, Dr. Cohen got his first shot, or was it your second? Anyway, he did it on the air. This is in the early
Second shot was on the air,
days, right? That was really cool.
Yeah.
Thanks again for doing that. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And, I'm living in a little different world than a lot of people are. And when you don't see something, it tends not to affect you. Kind of like in World War II, they realized, everyone initially was hiding inside. And when they realized the bombs weren't hitting them, everyone became relaxed and no worries. And if the bomb's not hitting you, you're not going to get hit by it. But, unfortunately, COVID, it doesn't make a booming sound. It's silent. And when it gets you, it's particularly with Delta, it gets you bad. So I see it every day. And I've seen people coming in who have been vaccinated. And fortunately, these people are doing pretty well, and they're getting out of the hospital. Right now, I almost 100% of my patients who are dying are unvaccinated. But I've seen enough illness in vaccinated people that, yes, I wanted a booster very much.
Okay. So you're seeing. I mean, what's the percentage of vaccinated patients as opposed to the unvaccinated?
Well,
seeing?
if you remember the initial data, they said 95% of people will not get COVID, 5% will, and it'll be mild disease. Then in real world, they looked at that. It was probably more like 90% with Moderna and Pfizer. And now that's probably dropped down to about 80% with the Delta variant. So the Delta variant does seem to replicate better, cause more virus in your body. And so it can get a hold of you before your antibodies or immune system is really getting on that. And they do feel there's good data now that your higher your antibody levels and your immune response, the less likely you're going to get sick. And the booster does increase that. So the conclusion is if you get the booster, you're going to be less likely to get sick.
Okay.
And
is there eventually...
Had I got exposed to...
Go ahead.
I was saying, had I got exposed to COVID, chances are still very good I would have had a very mild illness or nothing at all. But particularly in an environment where I'm going into rooms every day with actively infected people, I felt it much better to have that booster just kind of as extra protection, make sure I really don't get sick.
Sure. Well, I mean, that's kind of the name of the game here across the board, right? Is just better safe than sorry. Better to look out for yourselves and your fellow man by going ahead and protecting yourself.
Yeah, and if you filter out all the misinformation, you realize that the risk to benefit with this vaccine is really incredible, and it's really, is there someone who may have a bad side effect? It can always happen. Any vaccine in general, 1 out of a million people may have something, but, the risk of COVID is so real and so prevalent and so much more dangerous that it's kind of, again, like I've said before, no-brainer. The risk compared to the benefit is incredible with the COVID vaccine.
It's just good sense. So we'll let you get back to your good work. Last question has to do with something I read about eventually a pill coming out that we could take that would basically protect us all, kind of thing, or similar, I guess, to the yearly flu shot.
And is it red or blue?
So one of the things I have a number of physicians ask me, often if they're of a certain political persuasion, why are we not making just a drug to treat this? Why do we have to have a vaccine? Well, for one thing, drugs to treat viruses have been kind of hard to come by. Viruses are tricky little organisms in that they're not actually cells. They don't have a lot of the mechanisms we can attack like we do with bacterial or other organisms. So
Okay.
one, making a therapeutic is hard. Two, we do have an antiviral that we give in the hospital, and it does decrease the level of virus and seems to get you better quicker, but it's not like a slam dunk. And so to make an antiviral that we can market and say this works, one, it's got to be very safe, of course, but two, it really has to work. It can't like give you 3 hours less of symptoms. It's got to give you 10 days less symptoms or get you out of the hospital immediately. And so Merck has developed an antiviral that's kind of similar to what's out there now, but it's in pill form, which makes it much more readily available. And they feel that right now with their preliminary data that if you get COVID and you get on this medication, which they say is going to be very safe, your chance of being hospitalized or dying from COVID will be cut in half. And again, with anywhere from a 1 to 2% death rate, depending who you look at, I think that's any type of decrease in that percentage is really beneficial as long as it's a safe medication. And so Merck will be likely applying for emergency authorization probably in December.
Okay.
Now, right now, we're finally starting to trend down again, thank goodness. So things are looking much better this past week or two. And who knows, if things continue this way, we might not need the Merck drug. There'll be occasional stragglers who get COVID who have not been vaccinated, and it may benefit them. But it is nice to have a therapeutic that will decrease your chance of getting morbidly ill.
So overall, are you feeling hopeful about the human race still, Doctor? Or
I am.
Yeah, okay, good.
Well,
always like to ask you that.
As far as the disease goes, as far as
Yeah.
your opinion of the human race and where we're headed, that's a whole nother question.
When I started in this game 30 some odd years ago, there was no internet, there was no Facebook. I grew up where we really admired people like Jonas Salk and Louis Pasteur and these people who really had saved hundreds of millions of lives with vaccinations. And they were just kind of inherently trusted by my parents, my family. I was raised that way. And now it's been almost an about reverse. And so people mistrust before they trust. And so that's been the difficult thing. I think vaccines are still our way out right now. And that unfortunately what's stopping us is just basically what our lives placed on the internet for unclear reasons why people would do that, except to harm other people.
Well, we so appreciate and respect what you are doing, and we trust you. At least I do.
Okay.
Why'd you look at me?
I trust.
I will 10-4 that.
10-4, good buddy.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we see, doctor's in on it. Okay.
Yeah. Can we wrap this up, Pigpen?
Look, no, seriously, thank you so much for coming on here and speaking the truth and helping us find our way through this thing. Always a pleasure, and hopefully I'll speak to you again very soon. I've got this fancy mask that I designed that I want to get your opinion on as well.
You want my
It's
opinion?
not so fancy.
I would love to.
You want my opinion?
Yes, Bobby, please.
Well, we have to go to commercial. So.
Too bad. All right, stick around. We'll be right back here on KHTS Common Ground 98.1 FM and AM 1220.
SCVI is a tuition-free TK through 12 charter school that gives your child boundless opportunities to think critically and imagine freely. We offer a customized learning program built around your child's unique interests and strengths, with the only international baccalaureate program in all of Santa Clarita. Our approach keeps students and families in step no matter where your learning is taking place. Be empowered to make your mark on the world at SCVI. To take a tour or enroll now in our one-of-a-kind program, visit ileadsantaclarita.org. I lead schools, free to think, inspired to lead.
When was the last time you had a business insurance checkup? That long, eh? It's most likely Glenn Terry time for you and your business. Glenn Terry has been a Santa Clarita resident since 1980 and has deep roots in the community. 22 years in the insurance industry, a trusted commercial insurance specialist with LBW, licensed in 50 states. There's nobody I'd trust more. Call Glenn Terry today and set up your free business insurance checkup at 661-702-6005. Glenn Terry sticks to the mission, not the co-mission. Yeehaw!
Your hometown station, KHTS.
And welcome back, everybody. Good afternoon. It is, 1:34, and you're listening to 98.1 FM, 1220 on the AM dial, KHTS. Apparently, my good buddy, 10-4 Roger that, Pigpen is sitting over there. I'm the rubber duck. And we got a Smokey Bear behind the microphone. So apparently, our newest... Patty, of course, is our engineer, producer, and on-air talent. Apparently, he gave himself a raise.
I think it's one of those, give someone an inch, kind of deals is what we got going on.
It's
here.
funny because he wants to be an engineer and a producer, but he hasn't been doing both today. He hasn't.
What?
Listen, do you want to get into this? We have a half hour, my friend. I'm just saying, you're pushing buttons and stuff, and then you're all hot about when the show starts, and then the show starts, and I'm like, why didn't you say anything?
Because you guys were
You know why? Because you can't engineer and produce at the same time. I'm just saying. Pick one.
He's a sassy one today.
I
He's
know,
becoming
I like it.
sassier as the year goes on.
I like
As
it.
the
when
year
he-
goes on. Because I'm getting older, son. So
I
think
like
I've
it.
earned that.
I like the sass.
All right.
So,
Jason's here, by the way. Jason
we've got.
Downs.
Oh, right, yeah. Welcome to Common Ground. I'm Jason Downs. You're listening to Bobby Marqueso and myself, and we've got Patio Squire in the
Yeah. Well,
in the booth.
Hey-o.
hey-oh.
He's just a ball of sunshine as usual, and Bobby just likes to poke at that balloon.
I
doesn't
do.
He likes to.
He's my own personal animal balloon.
What animal balloon? What kind of animal?
Don't go there.
Oh no!
It would do you better if you just didn't ask such
I'm gonna
questions.
go with a bear since you called me Smokey Bear.
Smokey Bear. You're gonna go with a bear? Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. I'll count my blessings now.
So there's a couple things that we can talk about today that I think will be fun and somewhat juicy.
Ooh.
One of which
I said who at the same time. Patty and I are like, ooh.
one of which has to do with Bobby's past. Now, as you
I forgot.
guys know, it's like an onion in here. Do you know what I'm saying? The Bobby Marqueso onion. We just keep peeling back layers and finding out more interesting things about this guy's life.
You know, I've been married to my wife for 18 years, and she still found out something new about me like 2 months ago. So she hasn't peeled the whole onion, my friend.
See, and I dig that about
So
you in a
I'm
hardcore
like,
way.
You're saying I'm like Shrek.
And she's a doctor.
And you're
no
donkey.
less. Yeah.
Go ahead, peel the onion, donkey.
Donkey.
Go ahead, that'll do.
I'll be Puss in Boots. The cat.
That'll do, pig. That'll do.
Wow.
You remember what movie that's from? That'll do, pig. That'll do.
No.
I've heard that phrase before though.
Babe. I love that movie.
Oh.
Babe. Have you ever seen it?
A long time ago.
Great movie.
Yeah. Charlotte's Web.
So, not the same movie, but similar.
Oh, what movie did you say?
A talking pig. Babe.
Oh,
I know that
Babe.
movie.
Babe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Well,
The only thing I've seen is Honey Boo Boo.
which I have.
Which
not.
is,
What is
from
that?
what I understand,
Yikes.
Honey Boo Boo. Isn't that from a
I think
reality
so.
show?
No,
Yes.
but like you were talking about Babe the Talking Pig.
Yes.
Wait
Ouch.
for it. There it is.
Ouch.
Sorry.
Yeah, he really is snarky today, isn't it?
Well, that's a little mean.
That was mean and snarky.
Oh, I just got
All
that.
right.
Oh, that
And here comes Patty.
took me a second.
Yeah.
He is snarky.
Here's your tardy notice. Patty.
That's-
So yeah, I
So-
mean, this is a pretty juicy, past. We can,
Yeah.
we can peel back here if you aren't too opposed,
No, go ahead.
because I would love to learn more about you as always. So I mean, we learned obviously that you were a police officer.
Right. Yeah.
We've learned that you hosted a morning show, a
Right.
radio show,
Right.
all these sorts of things. What we
I
didn't
opened
know,
up shows in Vegas. Did you know that part?
No.
Okay, that's another thing.
Ooh.
But go ahead.
You mean like you warmed up the crowd kind of thing? Or
I
you-
was the host on several of the shows on the Strip. I
No
would go out and
kidding.
I would sing songs and just kind of warm up the crowd a little
No
bit and get them going, and then introduce the shows. Particularly the oh gosh, what is it called now? It's the one where they have the impersonators across from Caesar's Palace. There's an impersonation type show, which is awesome. Legends in Concert.
Legends
it's
in
called.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really great. And Elvis and I were best friends, and he roomed with me.
How
Yeah.
long were you? So you had to live in
Yeah.
Vegas,
Well,
obviously,
yeah,
during
right.
all of this time. So
Yeah.
where was this in the
This-
whole timeline?
That's the early 90s.
Early '90s.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's another,
so Wayne Newton and the whole nine.
yeah, Wayne Newton, boy. Yep. I wasn't as tan, but yeah, something like that.
So this was before. This was after the police.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So where in all of this history
Okay.
does your experience as a psychic
Oof.
and medium come into play? I found this,
Just as an offhand question,
I mean,
it's
this
so
is
funny.
an
How do you-
incredible thing to, because it seemed, I mean, the article that I read made it seem like that you left all of that behind to follow your new calling, which was, a psychic and a medium.
yeah, and I don't know where you read that at. Did I write something like that?
No, I mean there were multiple articles, and you did a radio
Yeah.
interview with Dr. Pat, and
several
different
just
things.
several
Yeah,
things.
Yeah,
So the accomplishments that I was able to do was when I moved out here in 4 months, I had my own psychic television show.
here.
Yeah.
Okay.
BBC, actually.
Huh.
So they wanted to do a show on serial killers. So they hired me as the psychic expert, and then I had a co-host who she was a journalist. And so we traveled the country from some of the more notorious serial killers, and it was my job we went where they died, we went where they were growing up,
Wow.
places where they had done what they did.
Interesting.
And the worst place ever that I've ever been is in Jeffrey Dahmer's crawl space.
Yikes.
So crazy. But we had that.
in
it
the
was on
house
Skywalker.
that he lived in during the whole
When he was growing up, yeah, and in the place where he was finally arrested.
Wow.
You can still see the police tape out there and stuff like that. I believe the show, it's called Conversations with a Serial Killer, and I believe it's still playing on Netflix.
That sounds
I've
familiar.
heard,
So-
actually,
I've heard of
yeah.
that too. Yeah, actually.
So this is something that you're still doing. This is
No,
a part
no.
of your. No.
This was a one-off show, 8 eps, and it
But,
never
but I
came
mean,
back.
I
to-
mean, the psychic medium
oh,
kind
once,
of thing. Is this
once in
something
a while? Yeah, I don't advertise it any longer. I never really did advertise. It was always word of mouth. But yeah, I don't advertise, but I still do it. It's not like you just all of a sudden become not. It's just something you always have
Sure,
with you,
but
right?
but did you all of a sudden become psychic? I mean,
no, I worked.
obviously it's late in life that
Yeah,
you.
yeah. No, I worked very hard at it. So I think all my life I've always had that intuitive ability. I remember growing up. I remember being very, very sensitive. I had an aunt that was dying, and I just had this image when my mom was talking to someone on the phone. I had this picture of my aunt dying. She was in a coma, and I pictured that, and I started crying. And my mom's like, "What's the matter? What's the matter?" And I told her, and she's like, but you didn't even know her, and I didn't, but I had this image in my head. And then, just little things like knowing when the phone was going to ring and just stupid stuff, little coincidences, air quotes.
So what did you feel in Jeffrey Dahmer's crawl space?
It was as horrible as you can imagine.
Feel or see? I mean, it sounds like seeing is...
So I can see, hear, and feel.
Okay.
And it all started when there was a guy named John Edward that came on television. He did what they call a gallery. So folks sitting in a little gallery arena type place, small, that he would do readings for. He was reading and bringing people across from the other side. He would talk about getting in touch with them one last time. And I loved that concept because I knew that type of healing was just amazing. And so I taught myself how to do it, meaning I would watch his show, try to picture what he's talking about, and then see if it would coordinate the things I'm getting, if he would, say the same things, right? That kind of thing. And then I also had a really good friend at the time who she would invite her friends. I would just start doing readings on them. I didn't charge anything. I just started saying, look, does this make sense? I started developing symbols for such and such means this, such and such means that. And then the more I got into it, and I can't remember the show, and of course I can't remember her name, but there was a television show, and it was a show, not a reality show, where she talked to dead people and brought them through a cross. And the people who she was talking to, it's like they appeared over the person's shoulder and said the words, and then she just repeated them. Like, that would be really easy. I would love that. So I just trained. And so now... it got to the point where, again, I can see, hear, and feel, and I see them in my mind's eye come up, stand just like that. I can hear their voice. So oftentimes if they have a particular laugh or the way that they talk, some of them are lower, and I'm like, he's talking really low, type of stuff. Just things that are familiar to the person who I'm reading for. Some of the tougher sessions I've had are those who have committed suicide. And then you have the victims from that. Those are really difficult because whether you get your answers from a psychic or a police officer or wherever, there's still no closure. You still are going to wonder why did this happen? And so I never wanted to be a showboat, so I just keep it real. Like if you walk into a place and the light bulb flickers, sometimes you need to go to Walmart and get a new bulb. Other times it may be a sign, but in fact, so when I got my television show, it's funny, it was an all English crew because, like I say, it was from the BBC. And so I remember on one of the first locations we went was the apartment where Ted Bundy lived. And so we're there, and I'm like, yeah, I'm tuning in. I can see him. Actually, he's standing over there in the corner, and he's kind of wearing this. And all of a sudden, the producer's like, Bobby, can you wait just a second? You're like the most understated psychic I've ever met. Could you ramp it up a bit? It's television. So I was saying it too plainly, right? And so I got it, television. They didn't want me to roll my eyes in back of my head, but at least to go, okay, hang on, I'm tuning in now, stuff like that. Gotcha. So it's just television stuff. And it came out that there's a guy named Derek Acora who was very famous over in England and such, and they did a poll between he and I. Now, he was the flop on the floor, eyes rolled back. They found him more entertaining, but they found me more credible. So that was a good thing.
Interesting.
I would rather be credible than
Well, so why did you move away from it? Why?
So, personal reasons.
Okay.
I had some, personal things that came up. And when you're in a position where you just feel that kind of stuff, you get anxious all the time because I can feel what other people are feeling and such. And so it really affected me in such a way that I had to really tune it all out.
I mean, it does seem like a big burden,
potentially. I hate saying
potentially.
That.
But you know what I'm saying?
It can be.
I see dead people as... yeah.
Well, yeah,
that must be exhausting and a big responsibility.
No, I mean, it was so what happened is there is a channel, right? You just turn it off, and I was able to do that for the longest time.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And then so you have people talking about I'm walking through a hospital and such. I'm like, just don't tune in. some people cannot help that they don't
Gotcha.
know
They
how
don't-
to turn
they
it
don't
off.
have control
I
of
was
the-
always blessed. I could turn it off. However, once some personal things came up for me, it just kind of wiped all of that away, and I wasn't able to turn it off as much any longer or as quickly. So I needed to find out, do I need to step up my game? Do I need to, in other words, do I really need to buckle down and learn how to turn this off again? Or is it, a fuse in my head? Well, this went on for months, and it was just the most painful experience of my life. And so I finally went to a doctor, and we did all kinds of scans and tests and things like that. And do you know, it sounds funny, but I would have been more relieved to find out that I had a tumor, to go,